Welcome to Running Down the Clock, where we break down all of this week's big news, events, and controversies from the National Football League. Over the next 45 minutes, we will give you basic fan perspective and opinion on the most important stories and moments happening now. So, let's start the clock. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Running Down the Clock. I am Tyler Walzak. I am here, as always, with Poya Ricey. We are recording this on a Wednesday in the city of Vancouver. Now, I've got something I want to talk about real quick. Not NFL. Commissioner Adam Silver for the National Basketball Association said this week that there's 3 cities that they're looking to expand to. Montreal and Vancouver are both on that list. Thoughts? Go.
Because I know this was Mexico City.
Mexico City is one of them as well.
Yeah. The only reason why I have no kind of interest in this is because Vancouver was a failed experiment already. I feel like they are not going to be a front runner to try again in Vancouver. I'm sure, yes, they're considering it because they had a team, but I just feel like it wouldn't be their leading candidate with a city like Mexico City. Mexico City could support the team for sure. It's 30 million people in Mexico. Like, they won't have an attendance problem. I think it's just the logistics of having to go to Mexico and how that all works out with, the payrolls and just all the situations there, right?
Taxes
it's
and
more
everything.
foreign. It's more foreign than going to Canada. Canada and U.S. cultures are a little closer than U.S. and Mexican cultures. I'm not saying it wouldn't work, but they could support the team better than Vancouver. Vancouver's a very fickle city. Montreal, I don't know where they stand on basketball. I know they've lost the Expos, but maybe that just left a gap where another sports team could fill.
Right.
The Canadians are supported very well, win or lose. So maybe they're less fickle than Vancouver fans who only support a winning franchise.
It's also more of a dense population in the city of Montreal than Vancouver. Vancouver's downtown area is only like 700,000. Montreal is well over 1 million.
Yeah, I mean, if the team's like marketed well, and the problem with Vancouver is they got to be successful. You look at the Vancouver Whitecaps; they were one of the best events in Vancouver to go to, the MLS soccer team, because it had a great atmosphere. And then the team started doing poorly, and it just became a terrible atmosphere.
Yeah, the Canucks stopped going.
The Canucks have never been a great atmosphere in Vancouver, because a lot of times when there's another rival Canadian team in there, there's just as many as their fans as there is Canucks fans,
if not more.
But they can sell out the place when they're doing well.
When they're not doing well,
I don't know how
they struggle to sell seats.
As of recent, they have, yeah.
And that was the problem with
Grizzlies.
That was the problem with the Vancouver Grizzlies, was that their team was never good, so people didn't care to go.
Yeah,
and
tickets were cheap back then.
I've got beef with. There's a documentary on the Grizzlies, and how like the owner did them wrong and everybody did them wrong. But the person making it was a diehard Grizzlies fan, took no responsibility to the fans not going to the games. If I was an owner and I had a team that no one showed up for, I don't know if I'd expect, I don't know if I'd stay in the city either. I know that I have to put a product out there that's good, but I mean, you could argue he didn't, but also no one, that's the thing.
Again, I think it stems from, for the Grizzlies, it was bad management. Like, they picked up Steve Francis. When he outright said, "I'm not going to play for you." That drops his trade value. You're not going to get much for him because they know you have a player who's not going to play for you. There's a lot of bad management decisions.
Brian Reeves.
So it didn't add to the interest. Yeah, it didn't add to the interest for the fans to go when the management was still learning how to run a professional team.
Yeah.
But there's a whole conspiracy out there that the owner never wanted a team in Vancouver. His only way to get a team was the Canadian expansion, Toronto and Vancouver.
And then tank it.
He had to go. He had to go through Vancouver to get a team and move it to U.S. market.
Does he still own the team that's in Memphis now?
I don't know. I'd have to that
Yeah, I
I've
have to look
checked.
that up. So there was also let's talk about the Steve Francis thing because then don't worry, people. We're going to get into football. It'll be a good segue. You'll understand it. Because you also said in Mexico City, you're not sure how the border is going to work, the pay is going to work, the taxes will work. That was a big thing with the NBA. Still is. There's a lot of players, free agents that don't want to go play in Toronto because they don't like going through customs. They don't like having to every time they want to go home go through like an hour process of claiming new things or like I think Chris Bosh was famous for saying like I'd have to take my chains off every single time I wanted to go through the airport. It's like that's a weird thing to get hung up on when you're an athlete making millions and millions of dollars about where you want to live. I can understand it. And Steve Francis not wanting to go to Vancouver was a huge thing. Would and players going to Mexico was going to be another thing too. So now this is where the segue to the NFL comes in because we just had our last game in Europe. The Colts Patriots, terrible football game, the worst. Um, Fans were still good. Fans will still turn up. But is the NFL serious in about expanding their product into the Europe market? Would that work? There's a million reasons I can think of why it wouldn't work.
So one thing I saw recently is they've actually bolstered their uh, player development in Europe.
Okay.
In England, they have like kind of like a facility where they follow the same way as European club football, like soccer, where they develop players from a young age through their academy system and they train football, and then they can transfer over to US colleges and stuff and play. And it's already in effect, and they're trying to strengthen that, get more European athletes going through this system than coming to the US so they can be products, feeding into the NFL system.
Yeah.
So it starts there where you start developing actual talent in Europe. And then you can create more of a following of people like just being around the game. They want their own teams out there, right? So maybe we're not there yet to actually have a team in Europe. But once you start having European players getting into the league, more European players, then yeah, you'll set up a team there, and then you'll have a European division even almost.
I think you'd
Maybe
have
you have
to.
a start with a minor league, like a lower league, but you have like a professional football league in Europe, and
I
then you
think
can
you'd have
develop
to.
even a team.
Yes. Yes. I think you'd have to have a professional team, like a professional, sorry, league in Europe that is not associated with the NFL, maybe owned by the NFL or funneled into the NFL. But I have a very hard time believing that the football players in the States that come out of the college, high school, college, um, would want to even think about playing in Europe long term. A lot of the people that are in the system of the system in the United States of football is you play high school, you go to a high school that's in your state that is more if you're a good player, you get recruited, you move. They have different ways to get you to play for certain coaches, certain teams based on where you want to be and how good you are and how successful you're going to be. And it's very much a family oriented um, type of person that is in football. I think there's a lot of religion in football. There's a lot of
Yeah,
like brotherhood
but
and family in football. And I'd have a hard time believing any of these players are going to stay close to their families, stay close to their friends. There's already a problem with that happening in football where you see a guy get in trouble every once in a while and you wonder like, is this it's because he keeps the same friends he had growing up? I don't believe that any of these players are going to want to go across the seas and across the ocean and live there long term when some of these guys don't even want to leave like Baltimore.
right. But look at it from another point of view. Would you rather have a CFL salary playing in the Canadian Football League when you were just on the cusp of making it to the NFL, but you just didn't? Or be in the NFL in Europe,
That's a
making
great
that
point.
NFL, making that NFL paycheck being in Europe, which is a much better paycheck.
That no, see, that's a great point.
I
But those
understand what you're
teams aren't going
saying.
to be competitive.
Once you're in the league, you make a name for yourself. You're a player that's sticking around in the league. Sure, you might want to try and jump ship to an American city rather than being in a European city.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
if
like
they're offering NFL paychecks in a European city, there's a lot of players who will take that NFL paycheck over not being in the NFL.
I agree with you.
That doesn't necessarily get you the top talent,
But uh, do you think at all they would get top talent over? It'd take like 30 years for them to want to get or be able to get top talent. Like I'm thinking immediately guys like Matthew Stafford, who's had a high school sweetheart and then they went through college together. They got married, very much at roots with like Georgia, where they're from. And remember, all these guys are like alma mater people, like whatever college they go to, that's like the the holy grail. And
Yeah.
like let's think about DeAndre Hopkins, whose mother is blind, never been able to see him play football. She's at every game, and I'm assuming that they have a like want to be with each other at all times. Do these like would the Staffords and the Hopkins want to leave the United States, which is all they know? It's such a I don't want to say prideful, but it's a very patriotic country. It's tough to
No, I
believe
know what you're
that.
saying, and I get you. If they have the choice, no, absolutely not. But if the choice is, that's what I'm saying. They won't recruit the top talent because when the decision is in the player's hands, if the player has the control, no, he's going to want to play in the U.S. But if the power is in the league's hands and the team's hands, like, listen, there's openings in Europe. If there's openings for an NFL job, there's a lot of people applying.
Like Kaepernick, would he be like
Sure.
the ultimate guy right now that'd be like, hey, you do want to play? We know you want to play. Go play and play to
But I
be
think
the leader and the
he's done.
main
He's
guy
too
in
too far
Germany.
removed.
I know. I'm just thinking
He's
like
not playing
top of
here.
my
Yeah,
head, most like in the most recent example.
sure.
Like let's say
But
now
again, that's not the other side of the argument is it's not good for the game when you're not getting the top level talent. You're
exactly.
just getting whoever's willing. But let's look at NBA as a comparative. The players coming out of Europe, in some ways, are more advanced
Yeah,
than the players coming out of
they've
the
grown the
States.
game. They've changed the game the way it was originally played in like the 90s.
Yeah. So that's another thing that they can push for in Europe as well, right?
But they don't stay
If
in
they
Europe. They haven't created a league in Europe that is able to compete with the NBA. And the NBA hasn't expanded into Europe. And you'd think that because there's already a culture of basketball in Europe where there's great Hall of Fame players coming out of Europe.
No,
But
because the NBA doesn't need to have a league in Europe. They do have like NBA like global. They do have global like leagues and stuff, don't they? Like NBA Africa, and they do have some things.
sure, but they don't. Why
But
haven't they're already? It seems like they're more advanced.
Europe has a ton of professional basketball leagues.
Yeah, but
There's
it seems
no
like they're.
professional football leagues in Europe the same way.
I
So
get
the
that, but
NBA could be on the ground floor and start those professional football leagues in. Sorry, the NFL could be the first one to start those professional football leagues in Europe.
sure, but what you're kind of proving my point for me is that if the NBA, who's already far and advanced in having those leagues, isn't talking about expanding their league globally in Europe, like starting teams that for the NBA, like an NBA division in Europe, they're already, let's say, 15 to 20 years ahead of the NFL in developing talent there. So wouldn't the NFL look at that and be like, listen, it's not working for the NBA, who've already been established in Europe, who have Hall of Fame players coming out of Europe? There's no chance it's going to work in the NFL.
No, because the NBA doesn't need to start the leagues in Europe because leagues already exist. They'd just be starting competing leagues. The NFL doesn't have any leagues to draw from in Europe. They'd have to start the first ones. That's
So
the only
is the
difference.
NFL going to
The
Europe?
system in Europe works to send quality players from Europe to the NBA. They've proven that the system works, that the athletic talent is there. The NFL just needs to tap into that market and start the leagues so that these players can develop and then move to the NFL.
So what the
If
NFL
there
is
was
doing,
rival leagues in Europe for football, they wouldn't need to do it. But because none of those leagues exist, every country in Europe has basketball leagues.
that's what.
Basketball is big in Europe.
But here's the question for you because I don't seem to follow what your argument is. My argument is it seems like the NFL wants to start an NFL competitive in their league where it seems like the North American division and the Europe division will win or meet in a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But you're saying they just want to develop talent there so that they can bring more talent to the NFL in America.
I'm saying the first step in that, in my opinion, is that you have to start some sort of leagues in Europe where you
But the
get
NBA has
people
done that.
playing semi-pro.
But the
Sorry?
NBA has done that. They're already getting people to play basketball in leagues that are in basketball that are popular. But they have yet to even talk about expanding to having like Germany or London or like Frankfurt or London have a team. They just want
Yeah,
it for the
because
talent. They just want to bring more talent worldwide to the NBA in North America.
right, what I'm saying is the NBA doesn't need to build leagues in Europe to get more talent because leagues already exist.
But I'm
Now
not
they
saying
just be creating. Hear me out. Let me finish. They'd just be creating a competing league against themselves. Sorry, against the established leagues. There's no guarantee that starting a minor league there, I'm saying,
I'm not
would be
saying minor
successful.
league. I'm
What I'm
saying
saying,
major.
what I'm
I'm saying
saying, what
NBA
I'm
league.
saying,
NBA league. NBA league. Why is the NBA not saying we want a team in London, we want a team in Germany, we want a team in France or like Paris or Italy, so that we can have a European NBA, a National Basketball Association that is directly affiliated with the North American NBA, so that we have one global product. They aren't doing that. You're saying that there's already leagues there and they would just be creating a competing league. I'm saying the NFL has talked about wanting to have an NFL in Europe. But how is that going
I
to work if
get
the
that.
NBA
Let me
can't make it
finish though.
happen?
You keep
You
asking the
just
same
keep
question. You
you
won't
keep
let me
talking in
finish.
circles.
No,
You're talking about nothingness.
no, no.
Say it then.
But because to support NFL teams in Europe, you need to have a better culture of players who want to play in Europe. Now, if you have leagues in Europe, you will have American players going to those leagues in Europe as well. You'll develop a culture in those leagues that will sustain the teams that are full NFL level in Europe. That's why you need to have those teams first. Just because the NBA hasn't done that, maybe that's not their business model. That's not what they're after. I've never heard the NBA talk about having a European conference, but I have heard the NFL talk about it. So it says one of their goals. The way I think you'd have to do that is to have some sort of semi-pro or pro leagues in Europe for American football. They don't have any. No country has any, as far as I know. Maybe there are some in like Germany or the or England or something. But if they set up those leagues, amateur, semi-pro, whatever, then they can create a better culture of players wanting to play in Europe, and then eventually lead to having NFL teams in Europe.
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
So, but what my point is, what you're saying. Then your argument is that the NBA doesn't want to do that.
I haven't heard them ever say they want to do that.
So they're just developing talent so that they can get more talent in the NBA.
Yeah, they're just trying to feed the NBA global talent. That would seem to be their goal. They developed like NBA Africa. They developed NBA programs in other parts of the world, just lower leagues to feed the NBA talent. Europe, they didn't need to do so as much because there's tons of pro leagues in Europe.
So they don't want to expand then.
I haven't heard them ever say they want to expand. Yeah.
Because I agree with you that the NFL has to start. They're bringing games over there so that they can have European, like European kids want to play football, NFL style football, or else there is no shot because you're not going to get the Matthew Staffords. You're not going to get guys that love their like alma mater universities and want to have to be able to go to those games on Saturdays before their pro games on Sundays. You won't get that. They will not want to go to Europe. You will get them saying, like Steve Francis did, like, I'm not coming over. I'm not going to a different country to play this game. So it's not going to work. That's what my whole takeaway from this is. It won't work.
No, and I agree with that. It'll be tough. But if you have American players going to the CFL equivalent of the European League, culturally, it'll start to have players, hey, you can play in Canada, you can play in Europe. There's other options in the NFL. And over time, as you have it's normalized going to Europe to play American football, it won't be so awkward, right? Right now, you ask him, well, there's no culture there.
It's going to take 100 years to make that happen.
Maybe not 100 years, but
100 years.
It's going to take time. Like, it's not just going to overnight change the culture.
Well, you have the CFL, you have the XFL, you have the USFL, all here that are taking players that don't make the NFL. I mean, you're already got 3 other competing leagues that'll take away talent from people that want to go to Europe.
Sure. But if they're not affiliated with the NFL, people can look at, hey, this league is affiliated with the NFL. I know XFL has some affiliations now, but if you have this league that is owned by the NFL, who's not to say that they won't have priority in scouting, looking at the European league that's just associated with the NFL? Teams can almost have like a farm team system. If the NFL owns the league, they might have priority and preference to take those players into the NFL as opposed to other leagues.
So basically, they'd have to be a farm team system for guys that aren't going to make the NFL that still want to play football with a chance to better themselves in the
I think
NFL.
that's a good way to start their system until they can actually support NFL teams in Europe.
I agree with that. Can we
Yeah,
move on now? Because you've just nonstop talked about how the NFL and the NBA, all this whole program so far.
I think we're done.
uh,
Is that our show?
let's
Let's move on. Let's move on.
move on. Let's talk about Buffalo because they got rid
Monday
of
Night
their
Football.
offensive coordinator.
Monday
Yeah,
Night Football.
which it was going to be a horrible game. Well, we thought it was going to be a horrible game because we thought Buffalo would just destroy Denver. That's why I thought this would be a bad game. Did
Yeah.
not happen.
So before we get into the actual game, I got a question for you. Was that game entertaining? It was a bad game. It was sloppy, a lot of turnovers, not great football. But that's
Yes,
an entertaining game.
it
For
was.
the fact of a spectacle,
The first play was
I
a
kind of
fumble.
like those games.
First
When
play
it's
was a fumble
your
turnover.
team,
When it's your team,
yeah,
it's
when
nightmare.
it's your team, it's devastating. It's just crushing watching your team just have a bad game like that. But when you're a neutral fan watching, I kind of enjoy those games.
I didn't mind it either, and the way it ended was perfect for like just it. Don't if you do not care about these two teams, it was a decent spectacle. It's a high event football game, is what it was. It might not have been good football, but it was a high event football game because you had two good storylines. Denver that can never put it together, and then Buffalo, which seems to be falling apart like on prime time.
Yeah,
It's
Denver's on a 3-game win streak, are they not?
they are on a 3-game win streak. They Denver's a funny team to me. Like I I don't know. But how do you have 12 guys? Whoever didn't count the guys on the field for that last field goal. If anyone didn't know what happened, the Buffalo Bills, Denver ran onto the field with like rushing to get a kickoff before time ended to win the game. Missed the field goal. Buffalo Bills had 12 guys on defense. You're only allowed 11, if anyone doesn't know that. The guy who's supposed to count them on the field is directly responsible for the offensive coordinator, Ken Dorsey, being fired the next day. They win that game instead of lose it like that. I don't think the offensive coordinator gets fired.
Yeah, so I don't know what happened there. But what about the play before that? The pass interference to actually get them in the field goal range.
That was a bad throw.
Was that pass interference?
I don't know anymore. Yes, it was, but it didn't seem like the ball was catchable.
Yeah,
It was severely underthrown. It was a very bad pass. He just threw it up and it did not go as far as he thought. So I think it was Jerry Jeudy turned around to try to catch it. And the Buffalo Bill player all he has to do is get his head around and make a play on the ball, though. It was pass interference, but I hate those pass interferences where the ball's underthrown.
Yeah,
This is it's an easy call. But hey, that's not why the Buffalo Bills lost this game. They lost this game because of 12 men on the field.
Well, they
one.
lost the game
It was
because
one.
they just couldn't stop. The receivers are garbage.
Yeah, Stephon.
How
did you
many
see
bad plays do their receivers have?
they had like 3 or 4 big time drops, like third down drops, hit him right in the hands, and they just dropped the ball. Very bad. Did you see Stephon Diggs' brother after the game? His tweets on X.
Oh, he's got to go. Yeah,
yeah, get him out of Buffalo. How do you feel if you were the owner or the coach of the Cowboys, and all of a sudden your team lost 3 games in a row, and you started to see him get a little frustrated? Would you not think that he'd be thinking the same thing about himself trying to get out of Dallas? Because that's where I first thought. I was like, if he's saying this about his brother, what you have to believe that if things started going south in Dallas, he would think the same thing about himself.
yeah, I could see that. The only other side of that is that we've seen Stephon Diggs being pretty visibly upset with what's going on a few times.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know the situation there, but does he have that kind of commitment to the team, or is he ready to go? Because as soon as a player is not committed, I think it's time to go, right? Because you're never going to get everything out of it. But his play still speaks for itself. He's still doing his part.
Yeah,
he's
still
not losing them games.
He's still a top 10 wide receiver. I don't think
he
won't
makes
be in
catches. He still gets yards after the catch. He's still doing well.
He won't be in Buffalo next year, though.
I don't think so. I think he sees that this team has kind of hit the wall and they're regressing. Is it coaching? Is it Allen?
I think they have to go back to letting Josh Allen be Josh Allen. Like, he's a guy that can make plays. They're trying to make him an X's and O's guy, I think, this year, but he should be allowed to be under center and be like, let's kind of play a little more backyard football instead of like
Yeah.
stand on a shotgun, throw, you make two reads and you throw it. Like
Yeah,
it
but
looks
if
like
guys are
Joey
going to drop the
Harrington out
ball
there.
and
It
what good does that do if your receivers are just going to blow it?
Yeah, but you can run. Like you can let them run a little bit, loosen them up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
I don't know. It's
or like just feed Stephon Diggs the ball more because we saw the Raiders after they fired their head coach. The next two games, just give the ball to Devontae. Make sure he's happy because he is our best player on the field. Stephon Diggs is probably the best player on the field in Buffalo. Get him the
yeah.
ball in space, see what he can do, and then start using the defense to kind of lean towards Stephon Diggs, double cover him, opens up something else. Like it seems very, very easy, but we're also just fans that don't know anything.
Yeah. That division's still up for grabs, eh?
I was just gonna
Like
say, I'm looking at
Miami's ahead, but
Miami 6-3, Buffalo 5-5, the Jets 4-5, still technically not out yet. The Buffalo Bills have a very hard schedule coming up. Like they just lost the Broncos. They have the Jets this week. That's a big game for that division. I think Buffalo wins. I don't think the Jets
didn't
are
the
going to do anything.
Jets beat them last time, didn't
I
they?
know.
To open the season.
That's why I think, and it was in Buffalo. I think the Jets beat them. No, it was.
But
This is the
to
home
be
game.
fair, Aaron Rodgers started that game.
After the Jets, they play the Eagles, so you got to think that's a loss. Then they play the Chiefs. You have to think that's a loss. Then they play the Cowboys. You have to think that's a loss. And then Chargers up in the air. Patriots, they probably win that game, even though they lost to them already. And then they got the Dolphins to finish the season. Like there's 4 easy losses left on the schedule. That puts them
Yeah.
that they'll be 8-9, 8-9 at the end of the year. Is that
Okay. What about the Jets? What's the Jets schedule to coincide with your Aaron Rodgers conspiracy?
it is. I'm
What's
sticking
because
with that
we got an
conspiracy.
Aaron Rodgers expected timeline. He's got a date where he thinks he could be back by,
So they got the Bills this week. Then they got the
which they
Dolphins.
could potentially win.
Yeah. Then they got the
Not a
Dolphins.
guaranteed loss.
Same with the Dolphins. Like the Dolphins are hit or miss. They play bad against good teams and good against bad teams. The Jets are kind of a middling team, so we don't know. But then they got the Falcons, they can win that. Then they got the Texans, who that's a tough win now after we've seen what CJ Stroud, who's MVP candidate. Then they play the Dolphins again, then Commanders, Browns, and Patriots. So 1, 2, 3, let's say 4, and then we'll give them one of they got 5 wins, I think, left on this schedule. That puts them at 9 wins on the year. So 9-8, where the Bills will be 8-9.
Okay.
And if they get Aaron Rodgers back, who said next week he's going to be back with the team for full meetings, like full team atmosphere next week, starting next Thursday. He said Thanksgiving. He said it yesterday. He could be back. He could be back. Let's say what was the timeline that you heard?
He said in December he's saying there's potential he could come back to play in December.
So then, yeah, then Falcons they win with or without him. Texans they win with him. Dolphins they could win with him. Commanders they win with or without him. Browns. That's a tough game. Depends on where the Browns are going to be. Deshaun Watson's out rest of the year. Did you see that surgery?
Yeah, you
Shoulder
told me.
surgery rest of the year. That's probably a good thing for the owner of the Browns because now he can just put the rest of that salary on insurance. Right?
Yeah.
So he's not actually losing the money that was guaranteed to Deshaun Watson. He can claim insurance on that now.
Is that a conspiracy there that he's not actually injured and he just he doesn't want to play?
Well, he said he wanted.
Like, listen.
Here's the thing: is he said he wanted to play. Deshaun Watson said, "I will play. Just give me the cortisone shots or Terrasol, whatever it is. I will play through the pain. I can do that." But the coaching staff and the management said, "No, no, no, no. We need you to have the surgery." So that could be a conspiracy. Actually, is that they said, "No, you're not playing. We need to save this money."
What happened with the Browns this week?
They
Baltimore looked like the team, and the Browns somehow pulled off a win there.
Comeback win, a big comeback win.
Yeah.
I think it was 31-17 or something like that, 31-14. And then they came back and won. The Browns came back and won the game.
Baltimore played with the league the entire game.
Yeah, it doesn't bode well for the Ravens. Did they what happened? Did they just kind of pack it in the second half? What happened? It was 17-3
just a
after
few
the first
costly
quarter.
turnovers.
17-3 after the first quarter.
It was like a tipped throw that got intercepted, pick 6 to take the lead for was it tie the game or take the lead near the end for I think to
Interception
tie the
return.
game at the
It
end.
was to tie the game at
Yeah,
the end. Yeah.
yeah, to tie the game.
No,
There was another bad play earlier, a bad
it was
interception by Jackson. He
it
has
was
moments of brilliance, but he had a couple errors which cost him a lot that game.
that's because I said he was the MVP this year. I think that's
I
why.
know. Week after, he kind of not as good.
He sucked. The week after, I didn't suck. He was not bad. The first half, he was not bad. He'll have a bounce back game though. He plays who the Ravens play. It's a big game. It's Thursday night against the Bengals. That's
Bengals.
huge.
That you've kind of tapped into one of my games of the week this week because we don't know which Bengals are going to show up.
You never do.
The Bengals this week did not look good
No, they lost, right?
for a team that kind of got hot.
And they lost to the Texans.
I mean, they managed to salvage like a decent score line at the end, but they were never in that game.
it was 30-27. They were up 7. Then Texans went up 10-7. Then I think they went up 20-7. And then 2017. It was close the whole game, but the Texans held on.
Yeah.
And then they won it with a field goal at the end. One of 6 games this week, I think, that were won on a last second field goal. Lions as well. Who's the other one? There was Cardinals. Kyler Murray's back. I like Kyler
Yeah.
Murray.
Hey, he didn't play bad. He didn't play bad. He had a good
I
game.
like the little guys. We love the little guys.
I'm not a video games guy, but is there not a new Call of Duty coming out? Or it just came out?
I think one just came out, yeah. He said
Yeah.
apparently
Now, isn't
they're
there the
saying
statistic?
that I know where you're going with this. I'll let you go with it.
Well, no, again, I've never fact checked this conspiracy, but the statistic that his play drops every weekend where a new Call of Duty comes out. But this week he did good.
Well, it came out like
did he break the curse?
2 months ago. It came out 2 months ago. So he took an extra couple weeks off his injury to make sure that he got all his Call of Duty out.
I see. Okay, I thought it came out a lot closer to
no, I think I saw commercials for it a while ago.
Okay.
So, but hey, your conspiracy could be that he took 2 extra weeks off to make sure he was able to get his game status up there. Because they've said that he's been around the locker room more. He's been watching more video, more tape and all that stuff. So who knows? He could probably be the starter next year because I don't know if you want Caleb Williams on your team anymore. Is he still going to be the first overall draft pick? That guy seems like a very shitty person.
Yeah, fill me in on this. I don't know exactly the story. He lost a game and went, crying to hug his mom, and now everybody hates him? Or is there more to this?
I don't like him because of everything that happened before that, where he says, I'm not going to go to the team that is first overall because they're going to suck. I don't want to play on a team that sucks. Like, that's stupid because you are the best player. So you should be able to get them out of that suck. And then his dad said that, I believe it was dad that was like, he deserves not just a salary when he enters the NFL, but he wants a percentage of
ownership.
Yeah, ownership, yeah. Which is insane. It's just not going to happen. Like if he demands that, he won't never play a game in the NFL. If he comes in with his salary, he's like, no one's going to give him that. And then now he's losing games.
He's not even the best rated quarterback coming out of college, in the last X number of years.
Yeah.
So, better players who are potentially better than you coming out didn't get that. Why are you going to get it?
Players that are in the league redoing their contracts, like Patrick Mahomes isn't going to get that. Like, no. It's just not going to happen. Who's like Joe Burrow, who just did his contract, didn't get that. Justin Herbert, who just did his contract, didn't get that. They're all better than Caleb Williams. Now,
did he say that just prior to that loss?
No, he said it a while ago. But then they started losing. That's the thing is when they were winning, he was saying this stuff, and I was like, oh, he's winning and he's saying this stuff. It's very annoying. But now they're losing.
Got humbled real quick.
Now they're losing, and he's literally crying in his mom's arms on live television, national television.
Yeah,
it's a bad look. I mean,
that wasn't a bowl game. I understand you cry after a bowl game, just a regular game
or a championship.
Years.
Yep.
Yeah, I think your emotional high is too much for that. Like, I don't have a problem with players crying after a big loss. That's fine. Like you're upset. You've devoted so much into it.
Yeah.
But I think it's that not that time in the season to do so because there's more games to play. You have to just suck it up and get better. You know,
Yeah, I agree.
maybe that's
It's
his
right
way
to
of
see.
releasing. I don't know. I can't speak for the guy, but I just think that it's not the end of the season. There's still more to play for. Save the tears for the end of the season.
I would even argue that if they were undefeated and they're like they were able to make the national playoffs, and then they lose this game, which is like there's 3 games left in the year. All they have to do is win out those games, and they're in the number 1 seed. They're going to the playoffs. You lose that game, I can see you breaking down a little bit. Like we worked so hard, blah blah blah. But they've already lost like 2 or 3 games.
Yeah.
So to
When
just to
you
lose
when you
another one is like, oh my god. Like
yeah.
at some point you
The
have
thing
to
is
be
also,
on field product and not talking off the field as much as you are.
you know how players shit talk on the field, and
Yep.
they can get pretty harsh, right?
Yep.
Just
Oh
how
yeah.
much he's gonna get shit talked about. Go cry to your mama. Like
Oh my god.
those won't stop.
No, he's probably going to get a few of it in practice from his teammates when he gets to the NFL too, and he misses
Sure.
4 or 5 passes in practice, and like Stefan Diggs gets upset and just goes, "Hey man, you going to throw us the ball where we can catch it, or should I go get your mom over there to talk to you?" Like it's
Yeah.
gonna, yeah, I agree, because the look of that was like all over the news, like ESPN and stuff. It was
Yeah.
everywhere. You couldn't miss it.
Realistic though, it's not the worst thing to go hug your mama after a game. There's
No,
nothing wrong with
normal.
that. You know what I mean? Like to, to be
But
fair,
she's like,
what he
he did
did
like a
isn't the
Lambo leap.
most egregious thing.
But he did like a Lambo leap. So like his mom is literally like cradling him while holding him as he like cries in her arms. You're right. It's not egregious. It shouldn't be that frowned upon. It's just that you can't be the guy that asks for a percentage of an NFL team when you get
Oh,
drafted
I get
to
it.
be not like I refuse to go to this team, and then 6 weeks later be seen crying in the arms of your mom. Like it doesn't. You can't be
Oh, I
both.
get it.
Pick the guy you want to be.
It is a professional sports is a league about image, right? Image
100%.
goes a long way at the professional level like that. And it isn't the best look for the situation.
No, but if you're winning, you can get away with that. If you're winning, like, oh, he's crying and like, what an awesome guy. He goes out there, he wins games, and then he celebrates with his mom, and then like hold each other and cry. That's a different storyline than like this guy's lost 3 games in a row and he's crying in his mom's arms now.
Yeah.
It's not. You're right. It's not a good look. It's not a good look. Mac Jones should probably be crying in his mom's arms because I think he's probably never going to start a game for any team in the NFL again, right?
He's your boy, man. You've been big on this guy since the beginning. I've never been a fan.
I
And
I wonder if he's going to
who
start
else are they going to
this.
play, though?
Bailey
Who's the
Zappi.
backup?
Bailey Zappi.
Zappy still there? I thought
I
they
think
cut
he's still there.
everybody.
They did, but then there was like, well, maybe we
When they
made a
brought him
mistake.
back, they
Yeah,
realized you need somebody else.
gotta have somebody. I still think that like, listen, this is the guy's his first season. His offensive coordinator was Josh McDaniels. Josh McDaniels went to coach the Raiders. So then his next season, he had a brand new offensive coordinator in Matt Patricia, who's not an offensive coordinator.
Defensive coordinator.
He's a
He's
defensive
not even a
coordinator. Yeah,
defensive coordinator.
he's so
Just a bad
the
coach.
bad coach. So that's his second year. His third year is another brand new offensive coordinator. Um, he's got no offensive line. Doesn't have any receivers to throw to. Like him and Kendrick Bourne were starting to come up with something. That's not there anymore. He's got no running backs. Like the guy just is in a bad situation.
Yeah, the
I think.
Patriot way ain't working. The Patriot way ain't
No,
working.
this
The
is
league's moved on.
it has so Bill Belichick in or out after this season. I don't think he'll get fired
I'm
during the regular season. I think there's too much respect between him and Bob Kraft that they won't part ways
Yeah,
during the
I don't.
season.
I feel like that it can be respectful, but at the end of the day, you know, Bill Belichick. If Bill Belichick was Robert Kraft, he'd already be gone.
Yeah.
If you know,
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah.
respect doesn't mean anything if it's not working. You know what I mean? You
Right,
can
but you're never.
respectfully let somebody go.
They're not like they're trying to save their season. So you might as well let him coach out his last days, and then maybe
Yeah,
he retires.
I think it's one of those, but I could see I'm jumping on board with your former favorite QB for the Lions, Dan Orlovsky. There, he had a take I saw where he got some inside tips, and who knows how these inside tips ever fucking mean anything. But he was saying this season we will see mutually parting ways, and I could get on board with that.
I think
Just
they
that
finish out the
decision
year.
to like both save face and mutually part ways. I could see that happening more than being fired.
Now,
And it's the same thing. It's just the way they word
yeah,
it, right?
I think there'll be mutual parting of ways. I just don't think it'll happen
You just think
until
it'll be at the end of the season. Yeah.
the day after the season ends.
No, I think that's more likely. I'm just saying I wouldn't be surprised to see it any day now because nothing's working.
No, nothing is
And
working.
it's
And
not good football to watch.
no, they're bad. Like Mac Jones was throwing up ducks, like just easy balls for defensemen to pick off.
Yeah, why
Now,
do they call them ducks? Ducks can fly.
the, they're lame ducks, I think is what they're actually called.
I get it. I
Lame
get it. I
ducks.
get it.
I actually don't
I
know
get
why they
it.
call them lame ducks though. Lame ducks a way to say like slow birds.
Sure.
Um.
Anyway,
Anyway, okay. So, but there's also rumors that Bill Belichick is already discussing behind closed doors illegally, um, that he's going to go to the former San Diego, the Los Angeles Chargers, and replace the head coach there, who we both think is done. Right?
yeah. Well, he is. He's one bad game.
He's. I think they're under 500. They had a good game against the Lions. Offense was unstoppable against the Lions.
Can I bring a touch up a point on that?
Yeah.
You know, my favorite segment is the game of the week. That's kind of my thing. I get to pick the game of the week. That was my pick for the game of the week. You had a
good team in game of
counterpoint.
the week.
Yeah, but you had a counterpoint game of the week.
What was that?
You had the Jaguars 49ers.
Yeah. Not
How did
so
that
good.
game go?
Not so good game of the week. Jaguars,
No.
I think the 49ers defense is back. Like
I think
Chase
you got to
Young
stay in your lane.
and Bosa.
Leave the games of the week to me.
Okay. Well, that's not fun.
But
at
what
all.
happened there?
The defense for the 49ers is just that good. And I think the Jaguars just didn't know what they were doing. Just got out there,
No,
got
there were
overwhelmed early.
there was specifically a mic'd up footage.
Yeah, I saw that.
Of them saying they don't know what they're doing. He's like, nah, we don't.
Yeah. So I want to know who said we did, like you don't see the video of the guy saying it, but you have the audio of the defenseman, the defensive players for the 49ers being like, they don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're doing. And then one player goes, yeah, no, we don't know what we're doing. That was funny. I thought that was, I love those NFL clips.
What's the reality, man? Like you got what they finished with a field goal?
I don't know. It was 37-3, I think was the score.
Yeah, they finished with a field goal. That's it.
Yeah, they'll bounce back though. The Jaguars will bounce back.
I think they will bounce back.
We believe in the Jaguars.
Oh yeah, I think they'll bounce back. But my guy Brock Purdy, that was a bounce back game for him too. No,
I don't like Brock Purdy. I still don't like Brock Purdy. Sure, bounce back game for him. He got all his team back, both like Debo, CMC, all those guys back. But I still don't think you win in the playoffs with Brock Purdy.
Fair enough. But
or the Super Bowl.
Is CMC done? You think he should just fucking retire? Couldn't go 18 games. Couldn't go 18 games straight with a touchdown. Is that time to call it quits?
I love that he came out and was like, yeah, I sucked. I'm the only one that didn't score a touchdown. I suck.
I did like how, and again, this is just because of the situation they were in with the score, but how the whole team was trying to get him a touchdown.
Yeah, at the very end. It was all backups.
I like that.
Playing against the Jaguars.
I like
That's the only thing I think I heard on one of the other podcasts. The only thing that the Jaguars did successfully was came together as a team to make sure that CMC didn't score a touchdown at the very end of the game there.
Hey, but you know what? That's what you have to do to keep your team going. Once you know you're losing the game, set a moral victory and achieve that so you can still fight for something and have some sort of reason to keep playing. Because the motivation, when you're just getting thumped, the motivation to keep playing just kind of goes, and it's easy to just kind of, okay, well, it's just ride out the clock and get the hell out of here.
Yeah, but
especially just play this little spoiler for something, at least gives you a little motivation.
For the next
as much as I would have liked to see CMC get it, if you get the record, you get the record. If you don't, you don't. It is what it is.
And in the end all be all, the record doesn't matter for anything anyway. So, speaking of things that don't matter anymore, is Josh Dobbs the comeback player of the year? I don't know if this trophy matters anymore.
Yeah. I feel like DeMar Hamlin is still going to be in this conversation just for what happened.
Sure, but he's played 2 downs maybe this whole year.
He almost sacked Russell Wilson on that last pass interference throw.
I think that was his. I think those were his only two plays this year. He had a
Yeah,
tackle, and then he
he's
almost.
never been a big name guy. Like, he's not the best in his position on that team, even, right?
No, he's like fifth or sixth. Like he wasn't an every down guy before. He was very much a
No.
package player.
So, but the only reason why I could see it him is because the storyline and the support and everything that went on with
It's a
his
very
situation
easy
last year.
PR. It's very easy PR
Yeah,
for the NFL to be like, this is the comeback player of the year, DeMar Hamlin, and they bring him out on the stage with the crew that saved his life, like the healthcare people that were there
yeah.
that
Who
revived
who
him.
got an MVP vote last year?
Yeah. So like that's a very easy PR move for them. But that's why I was like, does this matter anymore? It's because it had like
What
to me,
was
it's Josh Dobbs' story is the
what was
exact
Josh
same as
Dobbs'
Geno
situation
Smith.
last year? He was just a backup on the
Beckham,
Browns.
he is literally Geno Smith again.
Well, I get it. Well, not really, because he's never had that starting role, has he?
He's had it all this year.
Oh, no, but before that, prior to this year, Geno Smith was a starter that got bumped down and kind of lost in the system. Josh
Yeah.
Dobbs, I don't think he's ever been a starter, has he?
Uh
He's never had reins of a team. He's just
no.
filled in for guys. Like, he's been in Jacksonville, he's been in Cleveland, I can't remember
Yeah.
what other teams he's been on, but
The backup
Arizona
QBs for
briefly.
Jacksonville that year were pretty amazing. Gardner Minshew,
Were
Josh
they though?
Dobbs,
Were they that amazing?
well, where they are now, and then Nick Foles. Nick Foles, Super Bowl winner. Josh
Super Bowl
Dobbs now
MVP
comeback player of the year. And then Gardner Minshew starting
is
for the
Gardner
Colts.
Minshew. It's starting as a backup though.
What do you mean starting as a backup? He's starting.
He's
He's,
starting because the starter got injured.
yeah, he's now the starter
Yeah.
for the rest of the year. He's now starting for the rest of the year for the Colts. He could bring the Colts to the playoffs. Nick Foles, you could say the same thing about that if you're going to make that statement because he didn't
No,
start
Nick
that game
Foles
either.
had one good half season. The best half season I can think of in NFL history. Well,
The
maybe
Super
not,
Bowl.
because Brady came in the same way and played more than half the season and won the Super Bowl.
I thought he played less.
It was week 2 that Bledsoe went down and Tom Brady took over and never relinquished the reins to any team he held.
Then yeah, that's right. Then Bledsoe went to the Bills, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, he didn't really do much after that. He got his ring from that season and kind of went into obscurity after that.
He started for the Bills. I think after I didn't go in
They didn't
obscurity.
go anywhere, though, did they? Were they a
No,
playoff team?
no, Bills stink. Bills will never go anywhere. They're cursed. They're
They went
cursed
to
to
4 Super
always
Bowls
give
in a
people
row
hope.
once.
They lost every single one of them.
Did you ever
They
see
lost.
that 30 for 30?
I haven't actually, but my
It's a
brother in
good
law's a
one. I mean,
big Bills fan. Big Bills fan, so he's probably seen it a bunch of times with crying. Probably like
he's
just
probably seen
like
it four
Caleb Williams.
times.
Yeah.
He's probably seen it 4 times.
Okay, now do you want to get into our games of the week coming up?
Let's get into the games of the week. Okay. So we did mention one. I think this could be a very good game since that division, the AFC North, is pretty tight. Every team, I think, in a playoff spot as of today.
Yeah, that's
Maybe.
correct.
Um,
That is correct.
Bengals and Ravens. I think that could be our game of the week. Both pretty evenly matched if we know which Bengals are showing up.
And that's tonight when everyone's listening to this. That's tonight's game.
That's the Thursday game.
Yeah, Ravens
But I
favorited
do,
by three
if
and a half.
that one doesn't go great, I
It
do
could
have
be
a
a stinker.
backup game of the week.
Okay, go because I
It's the
think
Super Bowl rematch.
yes.
It's the Super Bowl rematch. We got the Chiefs coming off a bye week, I believe, against the Eagles, which are still sitting, I think, best record in the NFL as of today.
I agree. I think that
Yeah.
the Eagles Chiefs should have been your by far and away game of the week. Your good team game
Well,
of the week.
yes. Now, the only reason why I say that is Kansas City, as of late, hasn't played as well. They don't have receivers doing anything, where the Eagles are still firing. Eagles are still,
They're still
a
the two best teams in the
well-run
league, though.
team.
Like just
Yeah.
like
As
standings
of the
wise.
records, I think, and this is just my personal opinion, not to say they're a bad team. I think Kansas City's record doesn't reflect how good they are. They are a great team. They are Super Bowl favorites, but they don't play amazingly. They've been able to squeak out wins out of games, but it's like 2 players on offense doing much,
It's all it is. It's just two players on offense. They got to figure that
And
out.
Travis Kelce isn't having his best season. He's not playing bad, but
It's all that Taylor Swift talk. Like no one even talks about Travis Kelce anymore. It's annoying,
You mean Taylor
actually.
Swift's boyfriend?
Yeah. It's I hate I don't even like the Chiefs anymore. Before I was like, oh yeah, Kelsey's awesome. I don't even like him anymore.
Whereas the Eagles, everyone seems to be playing great, except I'd say Jalen Hurts isn't playing as well, but neither is Patrick Mahomes. He's not
Yeah,
playing as
AJ
great as
Brown.
he.
AJ Brown was killing it.
Oh yeah,
AJ Brown's on fire.
but the defense on the Eagles is good.
It's great. I think that so
Yeah,
we're sandwiched between two really good games. Thursday night game, awesome. It should be on paper amazing. These games on Thursday night end up being stinkers for some reason. I'm not sure why. I don't really think we've had a good one until the beginning of the year when it was Lions Chiefs. Um, but Bengals Ravens Thursday night, and then we got Eagles Kansas City. That's the Monday night game, and then the weekends all kind of like good teams like against okay teams. Like there's no like what is your bad game of the week is what I'm trying to segue into here. Bad team game of the week.
there's a lot.
Do you think so? I
Uh,
don't know if that's true though.
well, not bad team game of the week, but you got what is it? The Raiders and sorry,
You got the Raiders versus the Dolphins. Dolphins are a good team.
right? Oh
Then you
yeah,
got the
that's
Bills versus Jets, but the Bills,
no.
excuse
I
me.
see what you're saying. It's a lot of lopsided.
Yeah, like Bills and Jets are technically middle of the pack, still in the playoff run, so you can't really call them bad teams. You can call them currently poorly playing teams.
Yeah, no, there's no real like bad. There's no toilet bowl game this week. I can tell you a game which I think might not be too exciting, or it'll be a complete spectacle. Is Minnesota Denver. After seeing Denver this past week, who knows what to expect? Minnesota seems to be getting it together somehow. What I want to ask you though is how many games each weekend are actually good, exciting, fun to watch football games from a neutral observer? So I saw some guy on the internet. He was making a point of this that he said
Yeah, I think it
more
was
than
on.
half of them aren't actually good games to watch.
Yeah,
And without actually consciously recording how many of them are exciting, fun games to watch, I kind of got what he was saying. A lot of them are just kind of like blah.
well, basically, what he was saying, I saw the same clip, was that if we all weren't obsessed with football, the product that's on the field is not good, and we would stop watching. Like, how many times have you watched a television show where you're like, "This is a terrible TV show. I'm going to stop watching." In like the third season, that's just not going
All
to
the time.
happen with football. Yeah, it's because you're not really. So there's what 13 games a weekend. Let's say 10 to 13 with the bye weeks and all that stuff happening. Um, and the thing is, there's 16 at most, and say maybe just under half
Four,
of them
four
are
of them are
good.
good.
Yeah. Like, and sometimes you'll get a good game score wise, and you'll tune in. You'll be like, oh, I didn't realize that there's 4 minutes left in this game. After I watch the Lions games, I turn the TV over. I'm like, oh, there's 4 minutes left in this, let's say Jets Bills game or Jets Giants game, where like I would never watch it, but it's 21-21 and there's 4 minutes left. It's like, okay, well, that probably was a very bad football game to watch, but the last 4 minutes are going to be exciting for me because I didn't watch the stinker that was the however many minutes it was before that.
Right. I got a point of order though. With your 3 TV setup, when the Lions are playing, are they on all the TVs, or do you have just audio on one TV for the Lions and then the other games muted?
So I usually what I happen is the main TV, the one that's the lower right in front of me TV, that's Lions with
The
sound.
color corrected TV.
Color corrected TV, Lions with sound. The TV above that is probably the whatever game of the week is happening. Like
Yeah.
what's the one you said this week? So it'd be, let's say, Bengals Ravens if it was on Sunday during the same time the
Yeah.
Lions were playing. And then the third TV would be the TV I switch back and forth for. If I see somebody in the red zone,
Right.
boom, I go over there.
So you just have manual red zone.
Yeah, because red zone was free last year, but now you had to pay for it. Last year it would have been red zone, but I'm not going to pay $9, an extra $9 a month for red zone when I'm basically I just want to follow my fantasy team on that TV. See if I got a guy in the red zone like Eckler in the red zone or Keenan Allen on the same team, then I'll be like, hey, I gotta watch this Chargers game because that's where most of my fantasy points are going to come from.
You watch your fantasy. I'm the opposite. I don't want to see what my fantasy guys are doing because I just get frustrated. So I just check at the end, unless I'm
Yeah,
watching that specific game and I just
no, I check.
see it. But
I want to go
no,
in.
I can't. I can't.
I want to
I
go in.
get too upset.
Yeah, well, that's what football is. It's just getting upset about things.
Yeah,
It's all the
that's
sport
what
is.
life. That's
It's
that's what life as a man is.
um, okay, your three picks this week, your locks, as we used to call them.
You know what, man? They're not locks though. But yeah, I took relatively easy ones because I blew it last week. I did terrible in the pick, so I went a little easier. I got the Lions over the Bears, which I'm
Okay,
sure you
it's a
could jump
huge
on board
spread.
with.
Lions are supposed to win by 9 points, according to the
Yeah. I got the
Vegas.
Jags over the Titans to come back and right the wrong of last week.
Okay, Jags are up ahead, are supposed to win by 7 at home.
And then I got a divisional one. I got the Seahawks over the Rams.
Okay, that's a tight game because the Seahawks are
That is a tight
only
game.
yeah, it's in Los Angeles. I think Stafford's going to
Yeah.
play. He didn't play last week, which is I think why they
Oh,
lost. Stafford's going to play this week.
yeah.
Seahawks are
He's done
favorites
after
by
the season,
one
no?
point. I think so. Yeah, I think he's done. He's got like 5 kids now.
He's the guy got smashed up his entire career.
Yeah,
How much more? Just how much longer can his body stay together? Is what I'm wondering.
yeah.
I don't think it's like a will to want to play. I just think he's got to be so injured, and
Well, he
he's
used
got
to
to be
play
really
through.
sore every week. Eh?
He used to play through these injuries, and now he's not, which is a telling sign in terms of like, I just can't do it anymore. I gotta go.
It's also telling a sign of like he got his Super Bowl ring and he doesn't have anything left to prove. He
Yeah,
basically shut up all his critics that like I was good, I just didn't have a good system.
yeah,
But put me in a good system. I was good enough to win a Super Bowl, and he did.
yeah.
And the criticism against him, there was only one real storyline criticism against him. This guy will never do anything in the playoffs. He'll never get a playoff win.
Yeah.
And then he got all the playoffs wins, and that
He's
kind of
been
was the
in
big criticism against him.
he's been in 3 playoffs. He's won the Super Bowl. He's 1 for 3 of those.
That's a good
So
record.
it's a great record. Anyone would take that. Anybody. Okay, your
Anybody
three
except Tom
picks.
Brady.
Yeah, your picks are Lions, Jags, Seahawks. I'm gonna go with the Chargers, who are 3 point favorites over the Bears in Chicago. I'm gonna go with the Texans.
How are the Chargers playing the Bears, but the Lions are playing the Bears?
Shit.
I took the Lions over the Bears. So explain me that one. Are
Sorry,
Bears playing
I
twice
meant
this week?
Packers. Packers. Good call out. I know. You know what sucks about you is that you saw that here written down like maybe 30 minutes ago, and you couldn't have said that when we weren't on air. That's the well done. Congratulations. Congratulations. It made me look like an asshole. Okay, I got the Chargers that are 3 point favorites to win over the Packers in Green Bay. I got the Texans to beat the Cardinals. Now I'm doubled. Yeah, okay. Texans to beat the Cardinals in Houston. Texans are 5 point favorites. Then I got the Vikings to beat the Broncos. This is an upset because Broncos are 2.5 point favorites in Denver. That is the Sunday night game, which used to be a stinker if you looked at it. Like if we were to look at this game 2 weeks ago, we'd be like, nobody was going to want to watch these Vikings play the Broncos on Sunday night. Now they're both kind of interesting. Like goes back to that same thing we talked about with the Bills and Denver. That was like it was a bad game, but it was like fun to watch, right? This could very much be the same thing. Josh Dobbs and the Vikings versus the Broncos that seem to be turning it around a little bit.
If Buffalo won that game, I bet you that the Vikings would be the favorite.
I agree. So It should be a good game. It should be at least a close game.
For sure. I could see the Vikings winning that. I'd jump on board the Vikings. I'm riding the Vikings, and I never liked the Vikings. I like the Vikings more now because I like the
Josh
Josh Dobbs thing
Yeah,
more than I've ever liked the Vikings.
Yeah, the Vikings with Kirk Cousins suck. They're the worst team to root for.
Even like there was a time where they were like one of the most exciting teams in the league with Randy Moss.
Yeah, well, even with Justin Jefferson, like now.
Yeah, but I mean, he hasn't been there this year, so.
Yeah, with Moss and Culpepper back in the day, they were like very explosive on offense.
Well, yeah,
Just
I mean that was an
chucking
exciting
balls.
team to watch.
Yeah,
Randy Moss was like even a highlight reel guy. Like
best. He's one of one.
Yeah,
yeah.
You know what? I always say I think Jerry Rice is the best receiver of all time, but the most pure, talented, natural talent wide receiver was Randy Moss. Just nobody worked harder than Jerry Rice to be the best.
See, I'm going to say there's the three best wide receivers of all time. Calvin Johnson's number one, and then Randy Moss and Jerry Rice would be 2 or 3, no particular order. But all three of them are completely different style of players.
You put Calvin Johnson ahead, eh?
Yeah, because I think he was like the best route runner of all time is Jerry Rice. The best athletic wide receiver of all time is Randy Moss. I think both of them together is what Calvin Johnson was.
Yeah. I just feel you have to give it to Jerry Rice for the accolades and accomplishments.
Well, I was at the game where Calvin Johnson
how long he
record.
played.
No one cares about how long you play for. You shouldn't get an award for that.
Well, no, I'm just saying to be able to play at that level for that long itself is an accomplishment. It's not like he just hung around. I know he did hang around for like the Seahawks, and I think he had like a practice squad thing with the Broncos, but he was a top level talent for a long time.
Yeah, no, he was. Everyone thought he was
Yeah.
done when he went to the Raiders. He kept turning out games there.
Oh, so sad when he lost that Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, Randy Moss stuck around for a long time too, so he can also be in there. Calvin Johnson's
Yeah.
body was just like he was done. He was just getting beat up in Detroit. So best of all time in my eyes. Thank you everybody for listening. We will see you at the end of week 11 next Thursday, which will be Thanksgiving. Looking forward to that as always. Thank you for listening.
Hey, if you're a fan of Formula One, then I've got the perfect podcast for you. The Pit Stop Podcast, presented by the Ordinary Podcasting Network. After every single race of the Formula One schedule, Jordan and Tyler will break it down, give you some news, analysis, insight, before answering your questions and setting you up for the next race. That's the Pit Stop Podcast, available everywhere you get your podcasts.
Running Down the Clock is brought to you by the Ordinary Podcast Network and is every Thursday running until the week after the Super Bowl. We hope you enjoyed enough to subscribe and tune in again next week.